Hey guys, if you're interested in any figures or figure accessories that I have currently up for sale, go ahead and send me an email. Just go to my channel page on YouTube and go to the About section, click on that, and you'll be able to get in touch with me. How's it going, my fellow collectors? I have returned once more, bringing you another Hot Toys video review. And this time we're going to be taking a look at the Dark Knight Rises Hot Toys Bat Pod MMS 591. So this would be the third version that Hot Toys has made. So Hot Toys has released this vehicle 3 times now, counting this one. So since this is not your typical Hot Toys figure review, I'm going to have to change up the categories a little bit. You know, obviously this vehicle doesn't have an outfit or things like that, so yeah, I'm gonna have to change up the review just a little bit to accommodate. So we're gonna start this review off as usual with the first category being the source information. Now, I did own the DX12 Dark Knight Rises Batman figure, but I sold that figure and I never reviewed it on the channel. The reason I sold it was because I'm going to be picking up the DX19 Dark Knight Rises Batman figure. That's the one that's going to be accompanying this vehicle. And I'm also going to be picking up the Dark Knight Rises Catwoman. Now, I did talk about the source information of this movie, The Dark Knight Rises, on the review that I did of the Daft Toys Bane third-party figure. So if you guys want to check that out, by all means, I'll put up a link on the top right-hand corner of the screen. I pretty much share my thoughts of what I thought about the movie on there. But basically, I say that the Dark Knight Rises was the weakest of the whole trilogy, the Dark Knight series. My favorite being the Dark Knight, and then would be Batman Begins, and then the Dark Knight Rises. I know that there are a lot of fans out there that love and pretty much have the Batman Begins on a shrine, but for me, it's the Dark Knight. And if you want a more in-depth, detailed going over of the movie, just check out my Daft Toys Bane figure review, and I'll let you know why. I know that the Bat Pod was in the Dark Knight, but this particular vehicle that Hot Toys made is based off the Dark Knight Rises movie, since it says so on the box, as you can see. And it's even got the little clip of where you can store his EMP rifle. And since it is based off of that movie, I'm going to have to give the source information a 7 out of 10. Alright, so that takes care of the source information. Now we're going to move on to packaging. Okay, so we've made it to the next category, which is packaging. And this is interesting because I've never owned a Hot Toys vehicle before. This would be my first. So I don't know if they would usually do this, but Hot Toys double boxed this package. They put 2 brown shippers with the packaging. So if you see over there, that's the outer brown shipper. And you can tell it's a Hot Toys brown shipper because it's got the Hot Toys logo, the barcode, and it even says the 1/6 scale figure, TDKR, BP, which stands for the Dark Knight Rises Bat Pod. Usually when other retail stores package Hot Toys figures, they just use regular cardboard boxes. But this one's officially a Hot Toys brown shipper. So, there's that one, the outer one, and then there's this one, which is the inner brown shipper. And you got the Dark Knight Rises logo in the background. And then in the center it says Batpod, MMS 591, 1/6 scale collectible. And then again in the bottom left, it has the Dark Knight Rises logo with the lettering that says The Dark Knight Rises. And then on the bottom right, the Hot Toys logo. And then it's the same thing on the back, and there's nothing on the bottom. And then it's got a hole on the top where the carry handle would go through. And then when we get to the actual box itself, I would say it's okay. You get an image of the Batpod there front and center. And then you have the Gotham City landscape there in the background. And then on the bottom left, it says The Dark Knight Rises with the Bat logo again. And then on the bottom right, you get the DC logo, the Movie Masterpiece logo, and the Hot Toys logo. And then on the top, it says The Dark Knight Rises. And then on the top of the box, you see the carry handle. And then the Gotham landscape wraps around from the front to the top, which is kind of cool because when you open it, you can see that the skyscrapers and landscape just extends upward when you open it, which is pretty cool. And then on one side of the box, again, it says The Dark Knight Rises with the Bat logo. And below that, it says Batpod, MMS 591, 1/6 scale collectible. And then the Hot Toys logo on the very bottom with a black background. And then it's the same thing on the other side. And on the back, on the very top, it says The Dark Knight Rises again with the Bat logo again. And then below that, you have all the Hong Kong retail stores that sell Hot Toys products and all their distributors as well, all their information and logos. And then you also get the warnings and stuff that nobody really reads. And then on the bottom, you get the DC and WB logos and the barcode. And then once we open it up, as I just did, you get the instruction manual, which is only one page, with the same image that it has on the box on one side. Yeah, it's only one page, so you don't even have to take it out of the plastic sleeve. So it basically just shows you how to install the struts on the handlebars, how to install the batteries, and it also shows you how to remove the wheel brakes and how to install the EMP gun on the bike. And then you get the styrofoam blister that protects the Batpod for transportation. And then once we open that, you would see the Batpod itself with the struts on the side. And yeah, that's about it. That's all the packaging. So overall, it's okay. I think they could have used a different image for the box itself. Like the picture on the front is kind of basic. I think they could have used a better image. I just wanted to say that you can see a big empty spot here. As I said before, I've never owned any of the previous Hot Toys Batpods that were released in the past, but I have seen reviews of those old Batpods. And this spot here would have held the space for the cape piece. You would strap it to your Batman figure, and it's basically just a piece of plastic. You would strap it on the figure and put the cape over it, and it would make it look like it's flowing in the wind as Batman is driving the Batpod. They don't have that in this version. So yeah, we'll get more into that later. As for the packaging, like I said, it's okay, but it definitely could have been better. So with that in mind, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. So there you go, guys. Alright, so that's it for the packaging, and now we're going to move on to the next category. Okay, so now we made it to the category of likeness. And I have to say that it's pretty accurate to how it looked in the movie. I don't think there's any question about that. It seems that they even have all the wires in the right places, and the tubes, the axle, so everything is just spot on. Even though this is just a reissue and this is pretty much what it looked like in the past, but still, they recreated it excellently again. So props go to Hot Toys again. Because before, the section where you would place the EMP rifle, that piece came with the DX12 Batman figure. And this one comes with the piece already installed on the Batpod. So that's really neat. So you don't have to get the figure in order to get that piece like you would the other versions. So that's how it should have been in the past, but I'm glad that Hot Toys corrected that with this one. The front wheel is very nice. You can see all the weathering and scorch marks on the barrels of the guns on the Batpod, so that's pretty cool. Also, the weathering on both wheels looks really good. And this vehicle does require 2 AAA batteries. Why? Well, let me show you. And once I flip this switch, voila. So you got the lights, the headlights that light up on the front. And I currently have the Batman vs Superman on the Batpod right now. I know it's not accurate, it's not the right Batman that should be on the Batpod. But since I don't have a Dark Knight figure yet, I'm currently waiting on the DX19. This figure will have to do for now. And he fits pretty good. I think he's going to fit a lot better than the actual DX19 Dark Knight figure. If it's anything like the previous Batman, like the DX12 or the Batman Armory Batman, if the new DX19 figure is anything like those figures in the articulation, then I think it's going to be very hard and challenging to stick him on the Batpod. Because he's got that chest armor that covers the shoulders, so you can't really raise his arms that high. But either way, I wouldn't keep any figure on the Batpod for too long anyways in this pose, because it puts a lot of stress on the outfit, whatever figure that you put on there. I did have a hard time adjusting his hands on the handlebars. These handlebars do stick on there. They're not as loose as the handlebars on the previous versions of the Batpod. Because I heard that the previous versions of the Batpod, the handlebars were pretty flimsy and they kept falling off. This one doesn't seem to have that problem. The handlebars attach pretty tightly to the rest of the Batpod. I never had any problems with them falling off, at least not yet. The only things that I did have problems with were the struts. They kept popping off. So be mindful of that. So I see what the collectors that owned the previous versions of the Batpod, I see what they were struggling with in posing a figure on the Batpod. It's very challenging, so just keep that in mind when you pick up this vehicle. And like I said before, all the cables and wires, they're all very accurate to how they looked in the movie. You get the pedals back here and the rear wheel, which is really nice. Everything is just top notch. So as for the likeness, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. Also, I wasn't able to pose his head that high up. This is pretty much as far up as the head will rise. So if you do plan on posing this figure on the Batpod, just keep in mind that the head doesn't rise high enough in order for him to look forward. He would just end up looking down, as you see here. Alright, so that does it for the likeness category, and now we're going to move on to the next category. Alright, so now we've made it to the category of articulation. So we'll start off with the wheels. Obviously they rotate, as you can see, and that goes for the rear wheel as well. So if I zoom out here, you can see that it does roll. So really nice. And the wheels themselves are made of actual rubber, which is pretty cool. And they even added the weathering on it. And there's no rotation on the axle because if you guys remember on the movie, Batman was able to spin the wheels going in a horizontal direction. And it was the same with the rear wheel. But this Batpod cannot do that. It would have been cool if it could, but it can't. But honestly, it's no big deal because who's gonna pose the wheels upside down, you know? Or sideways. So yeah, that's no big deal. I don't think it needs to be deducted a point just because the axle doesn't swivel. Moving on, the suspension, it can move a little bit. As you can see, it does bounce when you push it down, so that's cool. Also, the frame on the inside is made of actual metal, so that's awesome. It does give it a little bit of weight. And then the handlebar brakes, they do move. So as you can see, you can move it forward and backward. Same with the other handlebar, you can move the brake on that one too. And the front wheel does not turn. And I think that's pretty much it for the articulation. There's nothing else that moves on this Batpod. So for the articulation, it's alright. It's nothing mind-blowing. Also, I forgot to mention that it does come with these disc brakes. This one is for the rear wheel. And this one is for the front wheel. And I don't like the one for the front wheel. There's only one hole where you can plug this into. Whereas the rear disc brake, there's a whole bunch of holes where you can plug this one into. You see all of these rectangular holes. So any one of those holes you can plug this disc brake into. And it'll keep the wheel from rotating. The front wheel only has one hole that you can plug into. And when you do plug it in, it's really tight and it's hard to pull out. That's what she said. So I'd rather just leave this one out, and you only need one anyway to keep the Batpod from rolling away. So yeah, I'm just gonna leave the front brake out. I mean, there's other bigger holes on the front wheel, but they don't really fit. They're kind of loose if you try to plug the brake into it. So it's a real pain to plug it in and take it out of the proper hole. And also, when you have the Batpod sitting in your display for a long time, since the wheels are made of rubber, they will go flat if you leave it in your display for a long time without moving it at all. So in order to prevent that, you need to rotate the wheels from time to time. That way you keep the tires from going flat. And if you're going to be inserting and removing this front disc brake all the time, it's just not worth the hassle, since it's such a pain to begin with. I mean, I have heard other collectors that you can just prop up the Batpod by putting it on something. You could do that to prevent the tires from going flat, but I don't have anything to put underneath it. Plus, if I do put anything underneath it, it'll be painfully obvious to see, and it'll just take away from the look of the Batpod. So yeah, I'd rather just be rotating the wheels every now and then. As for the articulation, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, because the struts, when you place a figure on the Batpod, they tend to pop off a lot. And the struggle is very challenging. One thing I forgot to mention, the handlebars can move. So if you want to pull it out and push it in, you can. You see? So you can move it in and out. And it's the same thing with the other one. You can move it in and out. So besides the struts popping off constantly, there's another thing that I don't like either, that the front wheel cannot turn. But other than that, the articulation is pretty good. So that's why I give it a 7 out of 10. Alright, so that does it for the category of articulation, and now we're going to move on to the next category. I just want to show real quick how to install the batteries and where the compartment is. So in order to expose the compartment where the batteries are, you have to lift the seat and the cover where the motor would be. Just lift that off. Set it to the side. And right here is where the battery compartment would be. So you just take a screwdriver and unscrew this screw and just remove that cover off, and that's where the batteries would go. So it requires two AAA batteries. And in the previous two versions of the Bat Pod from Hot Toys, this bar that wraps around the motor, it would lift, but this time it doesn't seem to want to. So yeah, you can't lift it this time. In the other two versions you'd be able to lift that bar, but yeah, like I said, you can't do it this time. So yeah, that's all you would do just to install the batteries. So a real nice touch. And to put the cover back on, all you have to do is just do the opposite of what you did to remove it, and it would go in pretty easily, just like that. See? So there you go. Alright, moving on with the rest of the review. And here I just want to do a side-by-side comparison. We have the Hot Toys Bat Pod on the left, and the ZY Toys Harley Davidson Fat Boy motorcycle on the right, which is supposed to be for the Hot Toys Terminator figure. And as you can see, the Bat Pod is significantly longer than the Harley Davidson motorcycle. Alright, moving on to the rest of the review. Okay, so now we made it to the category of accessories. All you really get with this vehicle are the struts that go on the handlebars here. As you can see, you have to install those, but I don't really count those as accessories. And you also get an instruction sheet. That's it. I really wish that Hot Toys hadn't cut out the cape piece that you can strap to the Batman's back so it can look like his cape is flowing in the wind as he's driving the Bat Pod. The previous two versions of the Bat Pod had that, and this one doesn't. It's a piece of plastic, you just strap it to Batman's back and drape the cape over it, and it looks like it's flowing in the wind. I wish they hadn't have cut that out, because now we won't be able to get that look, you know? Another thing, Hot Toys could have taken the opportunity to add more accessories. At least a couple more. For example, they could have added some bullet effects that you can put in the barrels of the cannons in the front of the Batpod. We could have had some grappling hooks as well. If you guys remember the scene with Joker when Batman flipped the 18-wheeler he was driving, Batman used some grappling hooks and cables to flip that semi over. So Hot Toys could have given us those. That would have been cool. So, you know, it sucks that they gave us the bare minimum. So I'm going to have to give it a 6 out of 10 for accessories. So that's pretty much it for the review, guys. So for the overall score, this vehicle is going to get a 36 out of 50. So that's another review done and in the bag. If you guys liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications of my latest videos. And until next time, guys, I shall catch you all later on the tube. Alright, bye, guys.